Welcome to Greg Ducharme Golf. I am Greg Ducharme, and this is your FedEx St. Jude Championship preview. It's here. It's finally here. It is the playoffs. Are you kidding me? Playoffs on the PGA Tour? Yes, we're going to break it all down. These are fun events, and there are three of them. Three playoff events, starting with the FedEx St. Jude Championship this week at TPC Southwind. The top 50 players from this 70-man field will move on to the BMW Championship. And of course, that is attached to your FedEx Cup standings. So last week, the top 70 players in the FedEx Cup standings moved on to the playoffs. They'll compete this week, where the top 50 at the end of this championship with quadruple FedEx Cup points, the top 50 will move on to the BMW Championship, which will take place next week at Belle Reve in St. Louis. And then we'll move on to the Tour Championship, where the top 30 players will compete there. Now, before we get into anything else, I just want to highlight the importance of getting into the top 50 for this season specifically. It is absolutely crucial that you get into the top 50 this year because, well, once you do, you're going to be in all the signature events. And once you're in all the signature events, you have 8 events to compete in where there's no cut. And that means guaranteed and elevated FedEx Cup points. Why is that so important this year? Well, in 2028, the PGA Tour is going to 2 separate tracks. There's going to be a championship series, and there's also going to be there'll be a challenger series as well. And once you're on those tours, you're basically stuck there for the year, unless if you're on the challenger series, you can win twice and immediately elevate to the championship series. But once you're in the top 50, it will be much easier to get into the top 90 or 120. Not exactly sure how they're going to format that, but it will be crucial to get into the top 50 this week. So it's a big week on the PGA Tour, and we're going to break it all down for you right here. Now, we got a couple of new toys here today. You can see it's a little bit of a different look, but it's all the same. We're going to get into the notebook. We'll show you all the key course stats. We'll show you winning trends, and we'll go through some of the players that I really like this week who are competing in Memphis. So that will be very fun to get into. The other thing that I want to get into is this channel here. It's been very fun on Greg Ducharme Golf. I hope you subscribe. I hope you like what you see, first and foremost. I hope you find it valuable. And if you do, please like and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way in helping me grow. And I will say, after this playoff run, after these 3 events, there's going to be some big news and some big, exciting changes coming to the channel. We'll be bringing you a lot more content starting this fall into next season and beyond. So make sure, if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You like this video. It helps me a lot. The other thing that really helps is commenting. And so many of you have commented. You've been asking me questions. You've been giving me feedback, which I love. So don't hesitate to get in there into the chat and leave a comment. Let me know who you think's going to win. Let me know if there's any specific players you have thoughts on, questions on, comments on. I respond to each and every one of them. But without further ado, let's get into the FedEx St. Jude Championship, which is taking place this week in Memphis. And to do that, we are going into the notebook. There it is right there. Now, this is one of the new additions to the show. You'll see my face as we go through the notebook together. And this, of course, is where we go into all my stats. I have pages of handwritten notes that I started Greg Ducharme Golf here on this channel specifically to share with you. Because, well, why do I make all the notes? I think they're valuable, and I'd like to share them with you. So in the notebook, we get into key course stats, some of the course facts, winning trends, course history, best performers, and of course, as many of you have asked for, the comp courses, which I think is actually rather effective and rather helpful. So let's first start with some of these course facts. TPC Southwind was designed in 1988 by Ron Pritchard. But in 2024, 2025, so ahead of last year's FedEx St. Jude Championship, there was a really big in-house redo. And they we'll go through some of the changes that they made, but nothing new this year. These changes were all made last year. It's a par 70, 72.88 in distance, which is pretty long for a par 70. Not the longest, but it's fairly long. The average green size is about 4,500 square feet, which is small. Last year it was the third. They were the third smallest greens on the PGA Tour, really just behind Harbor Town and Pebble Beach. The greens are a wonderful surface. It's Tiff Eagle Bermuda. If you've ever putted on that, it's like putting on pool tables. It is one of the best putting surfaces you can get. The fairways are about 25 yards wide, and the rough is a 419 Bermuda, which I expect to be about 3 inches in length. Maybe it'll be a little bit longer this year. Last week at the Wyndham, it was 3.5-inch Bermuda rough, and it was a problem for players who missed the fairway. I mean, I saw wedge shots last week at the Wyndham they came out completely dead. Guys were hitting shots from 125 yards and hitting them 80 yards. And then sometimes he'd hit it over the green. It was extremely challenging, a huge factor at the golf course. And with similar rough conditions, it could be a similar factor this week. So let's move on to some of these key changes that I referenced. They rebuilt and resurfaced all the greens with that Tiff Eagle Bermuda surface, which is phenomenal. They basically wanted to recapture some of the hole locations they'd lost over the years. So they actually made the greens a little bigger. They were up from 4,300 square feet. They got them up to 4,500 square feet to kind of regain some of those hole locations. And this is a big one. They replaced the Bermuda green surrounds with Zeon zoysia grass. And the zoysia grass is much easier to chip and pitch off of than the Bermuda grass. In Bermuda and tight lies in Bermuda, it can be very hairy. You could get some bad lies, and it can be very challenging. But zoysia is just a joy to chip off of. So that is an interesting change and probably a good one for the players who play TPC Southwind all year. Now we're looking at some of the important course stats. These are the scoring averages by year. 2025, 69.12 was 24th on tour. 2024, 68.95, which was 23rd. Now we're right in the ballpark of where the Wyndham typically is. 2023, 68.64 was the scoring average. That was 39th, definitely on the easier side. And 69.16 in 2022, which was 30th, again on the easier side. 69.05 in 2021, 33rd on the PGA Tour. Again, there are typically about 50 golf courses that are calculated into this stat. In 2020, it played much more difficult, 69.55, which was the 14th most difficult golf course on tour. I view this as, while scoring averages can be low, I do think there are some significant challenges to the golf course. It's not a pushover by any means. And one of the reasons is the number of times players hit the ball into the water. This is a really important graphic to take a look at here, because there's, as you see on the bottom there, 11 holes with water in play. If you look at 2025, 163 water balls. That was 7th on the PGA Tour. And you got to adjust this a little bit, because remember, there's a 70-player field. The last 3 years, there was a 70-player field. So if you look at and rank this by average number of holes played to number of water balls, this is in the top 3 almost every single year. In 2024, 151 water balls. That was 3rd in just the raw number. But an extremely high number of water balls, 130 in 2023. It was 7th on tour total. 2022, 174, 8th on tour total. In 21, 149. That's 7th on the PGA Tour. In 2020, 162 water balls, 8th on the PGA Tour. So important to note, from 2022 back, you had 125 players in the field. It went to 70 for 23, 24, 25, and of course, this year in 26. So water is a factor here at TPC Southwind. And I think it means that you got to strike the ball well. And we'll get to some of the winning trends, but you've got to control your ball off the tee and into the greens in order to avoid the water and those penalty areas that are constantly lurking. Continuing on here in the course stats, these are the proximity buckets. I think this gives you an idea. When I look at this stat, which I look at every single week, I'm looking to see, is there an area that I want to focus in on, or do I just want to look at general iron play? We know that iron play is the most important aspect each and every week. 90% of the times. Later on in the year, when we get into the off season, I'm going to create a video that highlights just how important iron play is for winners on the PGA Tour. But it's safe to say it is very important and the most important area. But this is where players are hitting their approach shots from at TPC Southwind. A very small number inside 100, just 7%. 100 to 125, 13%. That's a little higher than PGA Tour average. 125 to 150, 15.6%. It's still a pretty big number, but less than PGA Tour average. 150 to 175, 23.4%. That's above PGA Tour average and a very popular number here. 175 to 200, 18.4%. Again, above PGA Tour average. 200, 225, 13.4% above PGA Tour average. And then here, once you get outside of 225, we go well below PGA Tour average, just 8.8% coming from outside of 225 yards, which is way less than PGA Tour average. So looking at the importance of 150 to 225, that zone, which is a large zone, so many of the approach shots come from there. And those are the most popular areas on the PGA Tour. I'm just looking at strokes gained approach this week. I don't feel the need to specialize on any one of these proximity buckets. I may take a look if it helps me prove a point, but it's certainly not something that you need to take a look at. These are, as you'll see in the winning trends, the best iron players perform the best here. So let's move on right along to some of these past winners. You got Justin Rose winning at 16 under last year. He was in a playoff with JJ Spawn. Tommy Fleetwood was also in the mix last year. All very good iron players. Maybe not so much for the year for Justin Rose, but he had a great week with his iron play. 2024, Hideki Matsuyama won at 17 under par. He has a great record here. This was absolutely no surprise. 2023, Lucas Glover, again, known for accuracy and known for iron play. He won at 15 under. That was after he won the Wyndham the week before. Will Zalatoris, back in 2022, when he was competing in all these majors, he was an elite iron player and beat Sepp Straka in a playoff. Abraham Ancer in 2021 won at 16 under. Another very precise, very accurate, and strong iron player. And Justin Thomas back in 2020 wins at 13 under par. Back then, he wasn't very accurate off the tee, but boy, he could dial it in with the irons. So I think this really proves the point that iron play is king this week. It is the most important thing. You could perhaps call this a very average PGA Tour golf course. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's probably true. And it is a reason why you see a really strong list of winners. Guys who are really good PGA Tour players win here in Memphis, partly because they're here in the field, partly because it suits the game that suits the PGA Tour players almost to a T. Maybe a little less emphasis on distance, which I actually think is really quite cool. Let's move on to the next page of the notebook here. These are some of the winning trends. This is the first of two trends pages. This is players and how they fared in the week of their win. So 4 of the last 6 winners finished top 20 in driving accuracy and strokes gained off the tee. So that's a pretty high praise. Some of these guys that you just saw there, like Justin Thomas, like Will Zalatoris, are not very accurate drivers of the golf ball in general, but they found a way to put the ball in play here in Memphis. And they gain a lot of strokes because they're also for Will and Justin Thomas, they're long. But there's also a reward for hitting the ball in the fairway here at TPC Southwind. 5 of the last 6 winners finished top 8 in strokes gained approach. The last 3 winners finished top 2 in proximity to the hole. They were first or second in the field. And 4 of the last 6 also finished top 2 in proximity to the hole. I believe they all finished top 10. In fact, I have that right here on the sheet of paper that I made these notes from. And yeah, they were all top 30. All top 30. 4 of the last 6 were top 2, which is phenomenal. Will Zalatoris was 28th, and Abraham Answer was 30th. But they all hit quite a bit of greens, considering relative to the rest of the field, but they missed plenty of greens as well. So the last 6 winners hit fewer than 52 greens, which does mean that scrambling is important. And that's why 4 of the last 6 winners finished top 7 in scrambling. It's not overly difficult around the greens, but the greens are hard to hit because they are so small. So you have to pay attention there. And in a couple of the last 6 years, looking at this other sheet, which isn't shown in a graphic, it's been a top 20 toughest. They've been top 20 toughest greens to hit each of the last 6 years. Well, 23, it was 21st on tour. But in 3 of them, they've been top 11. So yeah, it's hard to hit the greens here at TPC Southwind for sure. Puts a little emphasis on short game, although I don't think you need to have an elite short game skill. Now, these are the trends that are what these players looked like entering the week. And again, I talked about this last week. This is very important because this is what we're looking at now. It's one thing to look at a winner after and say, oh, well, they had a great week with their iron play. But, what were they looking like before the week? Again, that's where we are right now. So these trends highlight that. 5 of the last 6 winners entered top 32 in strokes gained approach. So they're definitely on the they're better iron players coming into the week. Top 32 is pretty good. 4 of the last 6 entered top 26 in greens of regulation. They're hitting a high clip of greens. I mean, those leaderboards, if you look at the stat leaderboards, they can get bunched very quickly. Now, I would consider anybody top 50 in greens of regulation to be pretty good in that category. And these guys, 4 out of the last 6 were top 26 in greens of regulation. 5 of the last 6 entered top 50 in proximity to the hole. That is very impressive. Again, almost a full year of stats you're looking at that point. And these guys all panned out top 50 in proximity. 5 of the last 6 entered top 40 in bogey average as well, which is, you got to keep those big numbers off the card, especially here at TPC Southwind. Bogey average is more of a general stat. I think it has a big implication on greens of regulation and scrambling. So it kind of encompasses your whole game. So those are some of the trends that I believe are pretty important, but we're not done with the notebook. We got a lot more to get into here. And this is where we get into the course history. So we'll look at the best course history here at TPC Southwind, and we'll look at course history measures for the 3 comp courses, which we'll take a look at after this. So these are the 10 players with the best course history at TPC Southwind since 2020. Hideki Matsuyama leads the way, a winner here. Scottie Scheffler is second. Akshay Bhatia is third. JJ Spawn fourth. Sam Burns is fifth. Justin Thomas, Tommy Fleetwood, Patrick Cantlay, Collin Morikawa, and Maverick McNeely. Now, you're going to want to pay attention to these names as we continue to go through these slides because you'll see a lot of repeat offenders. You can bet Scottie Scheffler is going to pop up quite a few times. You can bet Hideki Matsuyama. Patrick Cantlay I find interesting. Fleetwood finished runner-up here last year, or T1 as I like to call it because he lost at a playoff. Justin Thomas, winner here, of course. Collin Morikawa seems like a great fit, great iron player, hits a lot of fairways. A lot of these guys make sense on this list. Sam Burns is an interesting one because he's not very accurate off the tee, but there he is number 5 on this list. That may be something to pay attention to. Let's move on to the first comp course. First comp course is TPC River Highlands. This is, I didn't expect this, but at River Highlands, you have smaller greens. You have, a different putting surface. A lot of things are different about it, but according to the data, this is the number 1 comparable course. So we're going to take a look at these top 10 players. Rory McIlroy, who is playing this week, all these players are. We're only looking at the players in the field this week at Memphis when we go through these stats. But Rory McIlroy, number 1 at TPC River Highlands. Scottie Scheffler, who's won at River Highlands, lost in a playoff this year, is number 2. Patrick Cantlay at number 3. Brian Harman and Victor Hovland, very interesting name there. Justin Thomas at number 6, second straight slide for him. We have Corey Connors, Russell Henley, Tommy Fleetwood again, and Robert McIntyre. Those are the 10 best players in this field at TPC River Highlands. Now, moving on to the second comparable course. This is ranked number 2 based on the data. This is Harbour Town, which makes a lot more sense to me. You have Bermuda greens, you have narrow fairways, narrow driving corridors, and those small greens, which I think are a big factor. Scottie Scheffler leads the way. Third straight slide for him. Patrick Cantlay, third straight slide for him as well. Matt Fitzpatrick, one of the favorites this week at number 3. Daniel Berger, who is on the list for TPC Southwind as well. He won at TPC Southwind before 2020 twice. So that's not even included in this. Then you got Brian Harman again, second straight slide. Justin Thomas, he keeps popping up here. JT Poston, Maverick McNeely, Russell Henley, and Sung Jae Im. Now, we got one more comp course to get into here. And, this is another good one, although it's very surprising to me. It's Kapalua, the plantation course at Kapalua. This probably has something to do with the wedge play, but this is like the opposite. You have huge fairways to land the ball in, and you have huge greens. Yet it is statistically a comparable course to TPC Southwind. The other two make way more sense than this on paper. But hey, I always show you the top 3, regardless of my opinions. This is just based on the data. So let's take a look. Collin Morikawa leads the way. Sung Jae Im, second. Justin Thomas is third. Daniel Berger, fourth. Scottie Scheffler. These are all repeat offenders. Patrick Cantlay, number 6. Xander Schauffele is 7th at Kapalua. It's the first time we've seen him. It's the first-timer on this board. Matt Fitzpatrick showing up everywhere. Jordan Spieth and Harris English are first-timers so far in these slides. So really, 7 of the 10 players on this list are repeat offenders. The only ones who aren't are Xander Schauffele, Jordan Spieth, and Harris English. Everybody else pops up on one of the 3 previous comparable courses. So that's fascinating to me. And I think it's a sign that, hey, this is why the data looks the way it does. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe not, but here we go. So very interesting. Now we're going to get into some of the statistics, and we always start. This is where we always start each and every week, and we always will. And here we're looking for value, the best strokes gained total over the last 36 rounds in this field. Scottie Scheffler is on top. That's an obvious one. It doesn't tell us anything that we don't already know. Jackson Koivin is number 2. A lot of this is going to come from his win, but it's something to pay attention to. He's not eligible to pop up on any of the comp courses, and he continues to pop up here in the strokes gained total category. Kid can play. We'll see if he can move from 70th on the FedEx Cup bubble inside the top 50 this week. Wyndham Clark at number 3, Tommy Fleetwood at 4, Rory McIlroy, who has a great course history at TPC River Highlands, is number 5. Tom Kim played really well last week. I love what I'm seeing out of Tom Kim. Then you got Sam Burns again, Collin Morikawa again, Matt Fitzpatrick again, and Justin Thomas again. So again, these are the guys that we're going to be focusing in on. We'll take a deeper look at many of them as well. Now let's take a look at another really important category. This is driving accuracy. Again, this isn't a make or break statistical category. It's just something I want to get an idea of. If there's somebody you had doubts on and you find out they're a great driver, great, very accurate, especially in their last 36 rounds, then this all of a sudden becomes very valuable. Russell Henley, Aaron Rai, no surprises there. Collin Morikawa, no surprise there. And he's a repeat offender here. So I'm really liking Collin Morikawa. Jordan Smith played great golf last week. He's at number 4. Jackson Koiven again. If you don't know a lot about Jackson Koiven's game, well, finding out that he's been hitting a lot of fairways, that could go a long way for him this week. Siwoo Kim at number 6, Tommy Fleetwood, number 7, Alex Noren at 8, Victor Hovland 9, and Matt Fitzpatrick at number 10. This is good stuff. Seeing Alex Noren there catches my attention. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood, Collin Morikawa, these guys have been popping up everywhere. But nice to see Victor Hovland again. This is the one that stands out to me the most on this list. I know Matt Fitzpatrick hits a lot of fairways. I know these guys are big fairway finders. But Hovland and Jordan Smith popping up on this list really catches my attention, especially Hovland, because he is, the struggles that he's had over the last couple of seasons have been with the driver. And to see him on the driving accuracy list, well, that goes a long way in my book, in my notebook. How about that? Let's move on to strokes gained approach over the last 36 rounds, another very important category. Here you'll find Tom Kim leading the way, Scottie Scheffler at number 2. Not really surprising there. We've been on Tom Kim the last couple of weeks because of this iron play, and he continues to excel. Alex Fitzpatrick at number 3, Collin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay. That's a good one to see. No surprises with Morikawa. Good to see Cantlay on that list. Matt Fitzpatrick seems to have been on every slide. JJ Spawn, Jackson Koiven again. Now, Jackson Koiven now has been on all the statistical slides. And again, he's not eligible to be in the course history slides. This is a big deal here, in my opinion. You got Siwoo Kim at number 9. He's popped up quite a few times. Stats love Siwoo Kim, I will say. Aaron Rai at number 10. So Aaron Rai been hitting fairways and been pretty spot on with his approach shots as well. And his game fits the mold here. He is a PGA champion this season as well. All right, now we're going to take a look at some putting, specifically putting on Bermuda. This is for the 2026 season. So these are the 10 best players in this field on Bermuda greens this year. Akshay Bhatia leads the way. Wyndham Clark is second. Jacob Bridgman, 2 great putters there, no surprise. You got Michael Kim at number 4. Maverick McNeely, another great putter, no surprise there. Scottie Scheffler popping up at number 6. Been on just about every slide so far. Harry Hall, a little bit of a putting specialist. Eric Cole, Ricky Fowler, and Harris English, all making the list for Bermuda putting. This was the category that had Bo Hostler in it last week. So, it can make a big deal if you're on a putting surface that you're really comfortable with. You get hot, hit some good quality iron shots, get hot with the putter. You can find your way near the top of the leaderboard the way Bo Hostler did last week. Of course, Bo isn't in the field this week because he needed to win last week and came up just short to Michael Brennan. All right. Well, that's all we have here for that section. And now it's time to get into some of the players. We got a lot of players to get into. So I appreciate you checking out the notebook with me. But now we're going to look at some of my favorite players in this field. So I am going to once again share my screen. And well, now I'm doing this live here. So let's see. I got to go here. I got to go here. And I'm just a couple clicks away. I should have had this set up already. And I clicked the wrong button. So forgive me if you will, but this will only take a moment. And you know what? Let's have a little fun here. Before, as I continue to wait, this is the first player that we're going to get to. And Scottie Scheffler. Surprised? I'm not surprised. Scottie Scheffler has one win this season on the PGA Tour. He has to win again. At the beginning of this year, we were talking about surprising win totals for Scottie Scheffler. All of them, from everybody I talked to about this, everybody's surprise number was on the low end. It was two, and no one even mentioned one. The chances that this has been a season with just one win blows my mind. But look at the record. So we scroll down here and take a look. You're talking about top four finishes in his last 5 starts. He missed the cut at the Scottish Open. I can give him a pass on that. This approach play column has just been spectacular. And it didn't start off that way early in the season. He had his struggles, which are hard to find, but losing strokes in 2 straight events is a struggle for Scottie Scheffler. But he's definitely gotten it back on track, and it looks very good, gaining over 10 strokes approaching the green in his last 2 starts, and he's a beast off the tee. Checking out his record here in Memphis, it's a tied 3rd last year, a 4th the year before that, which this is a sign that he's kind of figuring out this golf course. He came in tied 4th in 2020 in his first edition. But these kind of couple of strange performances. Interestingly, he missed the cut in 2022. He had 4 wins that year. 2023 was a year pretty similar to this, as a matter of fact. He dominated in all the stats, but only won twice. But the last couple of years, he's been much better here in Memphis. So I got to love what you're seeing out of Scottie Scheffler, and seeing him pop up in all the comp courses, the course history here, the strokes gain total, strokes gain approach, strokes gain putting on Bermuda. He checks all the boxes. He's the favorite for a reason. So that's why we go to Scottie Scheffler without question. Now, I want to jump over to Matt Fitzpatrick, who's second on my list. I love what I'm seeing out of Fitzy. Matt Fitzpatrick's 9,900 on DraftKings. So please ignore the $5,000 price tag there. That is not true. Here's what I love about Fitzy. We know that he kind of went out and laid an egg at the Open Championship. But I give him a big pass on that. And I'm kind of encouraged that he hasn't played since. I feel like he's going to come out ready to go. His game is in great shape. It is the best iron play season. You see this middle column here is iron play. And basically every event between the Arnold Palmer Invitational, which took place in March, every single event he's gained at least a shot approaching the green. And at the Scottish Open, he gained 7.7. At the Travelers, 4.7. 2.5 at the Travelers, 4.7 at the U.S. Open, 4.7 at the Canadian Open, putting up big numbers approaching the green. He did pop up on the driving accuracy list as well, which is a great sign, and a very strong putter. It hasn't necessarily been consistent, but you see these weeks where he can gain 4.5 strokes putting. I look to that much more than his overall statistics. Take a look at his course history here, and you see some good performances. T5 in 2022. Interestingly, 2022 was his second best iron play year of his career on the PGA Tour, behind only 2026. And then when you look at the performance, the thing that has really kept him out of contention has been iron play and driving. But this year, these 2 areas are very strong, which is what we see when he finishes tied 5th. He has a history of putting very well here as well, gaining over a stroke in 4 out of his 6 starts at TPC Southwind. So I think his iron play of this season is going to translate very well to what we're seeing here at TPC Southwind. So very much looking forward to that. Now we're going to go and move on to our next player, who is actually coming up next. This guy is also in the $10,000 range. It is Tommy Fleetwood, who comes in at 10,200, and we'll take a look at his profile. This has just been awesome for Tommy. Again, really strong iron play the last 4 weeks. But what he's really done is he's an elite driver of the ball, very accurate, which I like. And he putts incredibly well. and has been lately. And he's a great putter on Bermuda greens as well. Take a look at his course history. Third place finishes in 2 out of his last 3 years, and a tied 22nd in between. So in 6 starts, he has 4 top 25s and 2 top 3s. This is a great golf course for a ball striker like Tommy Fleetwood. And again, no surprise, you see when he performs really well, he performs well in the ball striking categories, off the tee and approaching the green. And in fact, he finished tied 22nd in 2024, losing 8 strokes putting. Okay, I think this golf course really fits his eye, and I think it's a great spot for him, which is also why I like going to Collin Morikawa here, who is kind of a similar style player to Tommy Fleetwood. Hit a lot of fairways, hit a lot of greens. The one area of struggle for him has been his around the green play, but he makes up for that with putting. Collin Morikawa has gained 2 or more strokes putting in 5 straight events. 2 or more strokes putting in 5 straight events. This is incredible for Collin Morikawa, who has struggled with putting in the past, but has had some great weeks here this year. Always rates out really well in the ball striking categories. He's hitting a lot of fairways, hitting a lot of greens, and gaining a pile of strokes approaching the green. That's exactly what you have to do here at TPC Southwind. So I'm a huge fan of what we're seeing out of Collin Morikawa this week. Now we're going to go to, I really should have pulled more of these up in advance, but we're going to continue to share some screens of players here. So we'll share this tab right here. And as this pops up, this is, of course, Hideki Matsuyama. He was number 1 on this list in the course history here. Very good performance, and it's no surprise why he's here. He's also red hot. Tied 14th at the Travelers, tied 14th at the Open, tied 3rd at the 3M, tied 5th at the Rocket, tied 7th at the Wyndham, and he's done it in a little improvement off the tee. He struggled on Sunday off the tee at the Wyndham Championship, but you've seen much better iron play. Looks a lot more like Hideki Matsuyama over the last month and a half or so. See, earlier in the year, he was really struggling with the driver, and that seems to be in order. I mean, it was a bad driving season for Hideki from the start all the way up until the PGA Championship and beyond, really until the US Open. And in these last 5 events or so, he's really figured it out. Short game, simply the best on tour. So I'm looking for a little driving accuracy to avoid the hazards. This iron play is rounding into form and getting hot. And his putter's been pretty good too, gaining multiple strokes in 3 out of his last 4 events on the putting green. So I love what I'm seeing out of Hideki. And I definitely, in a fantasy perspective, I think he's going to be pretty popular. So you may want to pay attention to that. And maybe, you might want to go somewhere else in the $9,000 range. Maybe you go up to Morikawa, or maybe you go down to this guy who may not be your favorite, but he is playing well and does check a lot of boxes and does perform very well in our comp courses. So I love what I'm seeing out of Cantlay. Finally, we get a good result with the T8 at the Rocket. There's probably a little left on the table there, but these finishes have just been bland from him. T14 at the Travelers, miscut at the Scottish. I give Scottie a pass there. I give Cantlay a pass there too. T28 at the Open, T8 at the Rocket. I think these are pretty good, boring, middling finishes. But you're seeing some really good iron play all season from Cantlay. The driver has been so-so. I think it's good enough where you can handle TPC Southwind. And now he's gained strokes putting in his last 4 events. So these metrics work for me. We just haven't quite seen the finishing positions rise to the occasion, if you will. But this is his course history. These are just the events at Southwind, T9, T12, second, T57, T11, miscut, T12, T8, T10. Very good golf course for him. He's done it. He's performed well at T11, losing strokes, approaching the green. He's putted well here at times. This is a good spot for Cantlay, and whether you like it or not, I think it's somebody that you got to pay attention to for sure. Now we're going to move on to Robert McIntyre, who's another player I like this week. I'm rather encouraged by what I'm seeing, and I think you'll find this interesting too. The Open wasn't great for him, lost strokes approaching the green, but right before that, gained 9.5 at the Scottish Open and 3.5 at the Travelers. And at the RBC Canadian Open, 2.9. This has been an area of emphasis and focus for McIntyre. And as his iron play goes, so does his performance and the results. But I think this is a guy who has a good week, will contend. You see some really good putting over the last 4 or 5 weeks, gaining strokes in all of them, gaining over a shot and a half in the last 4. I think that's a really good sign for Robert McIntyre. And he does have a T7 here in 2024, which I'm rather fond of as well. So yeah, I like the way McIntyre's looking. He's kind of a sneaky pick in that low $8,000 range. I may prefer to go with someone like Justin Thomas, who's also in that range. Justin Thomas has been driving the ball very well. He's been very accurate. He's at 8,100 as well. So I may go JT over Robert McIntyre, but McIntyre has definitely caught my attention. But not quite like Tom Kim, who we went with last week, and he performed at a very high clip, and I expect him to again. Look at these approach numbers. I mean, over 2.5 strokes in every event since the Canadian Open. And he was still gaining strokes before that. He's gained strokes approaching the green in every event since the Valero Texas Open, which was before the Masters. Basically, this entire season has just been full of red hot approach play. And that's why he's actually ahead of Scottie Scheffler in the strokes gain approach metric. So it's been good lately. It's good now. He's extremely accurate off the tee. Distance isn't a huge concern for me this week in Memphis. Love what I'm seeing. And last year was a really bad year for Tom Kim. So I'm not surprised to see a top 50 in 2024. But I think 2022, 2023, this is more like the Tom Kim I'm expecting to see. Kind of top 25 finish should be a shoo-in for sure. The other thing you take a look at is what he did on the greens last week on Bermuda greens, gaining 6 strokes. I think that's a really big deal for Tom Kim. So I love what I'm seeing there. Now we got a couple more players to go through here, about 4 more players. And this next one requires, well, a little soundbite here. So I think you'll enjoy this. It is Rickie Fowler. Oh yeah, Rickie Fowler. He is looking sharp coming in here. T8 at the Rocket Classic, T18 at the Open Championship, T15 at the John Deere. This is a big turnaround, and it comes with great ball striking. Gained over a shot in each of his last 4 events off the tee, and over 2 strokes approaching the green in his last 3 events. And he's gained strokes putting in 3 straight as well. So Rickie Fowler doesn't pop up on many of our previous slides, but what Rickie Fowler is doing is performing at a very high level, and he's hot right now. And I love when Rickie Fowler gets hot, because he has a tendency of keeping it rolling. Like last year, he made a big push for the playoffs, finished tied 6th here at the Wyndham. He's done it before as well. If you go through some of his previous performances back in 2016, 2014, 13, a couple tied top 10s when Rickie was playing really well. So if he comes in here playing well, I think it's a really good spot for Rickie Fowler, and he's a player to pay attention to without question, and I certainly am paying attention. Now we're going to go and move on to our next player, who is also in the $7,000 range at $7,100, and that is Alex Noren. No cool soundbite for him, unfortunately, but Alex Noren playing really good golf. Tied 18th at the Open, tied 7th last week at the Wyndham. Very good putter on Bermuda grass greens, and a very accurate driver of the golf ball. I like that he actually was able to perform well perform well without having a great iron play week. I love what I saw at the Open with his approach game, and I think we could see a similar situation here. This hasn't been the best golf course for him, but back in 2020 and 2021, you see a couple top 10 finishes, WD in 22, tied 30th in 2024. So pretty darn good. Maybe not the best, but I think for a place like TPC Southwind, that's actually a really good and strong resume. Now, a couple other players to get to here. We're going to get down into the $6,000 range, and there are a few that have my attention, and I just have to find them. I'll tell you before I do, as I continue to scroll and search and search and search. Where are they? Where are they? Well, I'll just go like this. For some reason, you saw that I highlighted all of that. So what I'll do is type it in, and this is Sungjae Im. Very impressed with what Sungjae Im has going on at the moment as this loads. I think you'll see why. But Sungjae Im 6,700 here on DraftKings. And again, another great spot for him. Starting to see a turnaround in the iron play. This was really bad for months and months and months earlier this season. From the Houston Open in March, in every single event, as I scroll up all the way until the Open Championship, he lost strokes approaching the green. It's a miracle that he was able to make it here to the FedEx St. Jude. But now it's starting to turn around, starting to level out. And you see as his iron play goes, now you have 3 top 15 finishes in his last 4 starts. I love that. The putter starting to heat up as well. Over the last 2 weeks combined, he's gained over 9 strokes, which is phenomenal. And he's gained strokes over a stroke putting in 3 out of his last 4, gaining strokes in 4 straight off the tee. Really good stuff so far from Sungjae Im. And I think that this is a place that should suit him pretty well, and it has in the past. Tied 6th in 23, tied 17th last year. A couple other nice middle teen finishes in 2022 and 2021 when there were 125 players in the field. So I definitely like what I'm seeing out of Sungjae Im. One last player who popped up on our driving accuracy report is Jordan Smith. Love the way he's swinging right now. It is a beautiful golf swing, and it's one you certainly want to pay attention to. And I think on a ball striker's golf course, this PGA Tour rookie should have a great go at it. Look at these ball striking numbers. 3 in a row, gaining over a shot and a half off the tee. You're talking about 5 in a row, gaining over a shot approaching the green, which is a great sign. Last week on Bermuda greens, 4.274 strokes putting, and all led to a tied 14th finish. He's at 6,600 on DraftKings. I think this is the kind of player that you pair with a Scottie Scheffler. Should you start your lineup with him, he's going to make a big difference for you. So, yeah, love what I'm seeing out of Jordan Smith. Love the ball striking performance as well. So this has been really fun. I hope you've enjoyed the kind of live recording here as I go. This is a recorded show, but I kind of went through all that production live and showed you some of my screens. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hey, we'll be keeping you up to date with everything going on in this tournament on the Second Cut podcast. We'll have a Tuesday episode where we go through some preview topics, and then we'll have round recaps on Friday and Sunday. That's at the Second Cut podcast. That link is in the description. I encourage you to go over there and check that out as well. That's myself, Rick Gaiman, and Mark Immelman. We'll be back next week with another preview for the BMW Championship right here, which is taking place at Belle Reve, which is in St. Louis, and a golf course that's hosted a major championship before, won by Brooks Koepka, who unfortunately won't be in the field. Look, this is playoff time. There's a lot of bubble conversations to get into, and we'll talk FedEx Cup points on the Second Cut podcast as well. So if you're interested in that kind of content, make sure you check that out over there. But for now, Thanks for listening. I appreciate you watching here today on Greg Ducharme Golf. I ask you one more time, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button so you can keep up to date with everything going on here. Again, big news coming at the end of this PGA Tour season with regards to this channel. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed. I appreciate you watching. Until next time, I'm Greg Ducharme. Enjoy the first leg of the playoffs. You kidding me?